Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the Sunday edition of the Daily Debate. I'm Nancy Sarah Barakat, and on tonight's program, and as we have done so throughout the day, we're continuing our extensive coverage of the Gaza Donors Conference, which took place here in Cairo today. Now, the conference has raised and exceeded expectations by raising $5.4 billion to help Gaza's reconstruction. And a quick reminder that the Palestinian Authority had actually asked for $4 billion to rebuild the coastal enclave. At least 100,000 Gazans have lost their homes in the 50-day conflict that saw Israel batter the coastal enclave over those 50 days, and much of the territory's infrastructure was also brought to demolition. Envoys from dozens of countries have been attending the Cairo conference, which was inaugurated by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Earlier, the president made an opening speech calling on Israel to commit to a long-term peace initiative. Both President al-Sisi and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas urged Israel to give up land seized in the 1967 Middle East war and accept a fair solution for Palestinian refugees in exchange for full recognition. Let me also just quickly remind you that the conference was both hosted by Egypt and Norway. In attendance was obviously top Egyptian officials, as well as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who delivered his speech. There was also Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri and a number of ministers from various countries, obviously including the Norwegian Foreign Minister Borg Brende, the US Secretary of State John Kerry, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon, Arab League Chief Nabil al-Arabi, and European Union Policy Chief Catherine Ashton, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, and others, along with more than 50 national delegations. That's what we're going to be taking a look tonight in full detail when I welcome my guests here in the studio. And to start off, I'd like to take a look at the following report in which President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated the day's conference. Let's take a look at those details.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated on Sunday the International Conference for the Reconstruction of Gaza Strip, entitled The Reconstruction of Gaza. The President delivered the speech at the opening session, which has brought together envoys including the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, the US Secretary of State John Kerry, and the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton. In his speech, the President urged the Israelis to consider launching a new peace effort based on the Arab initiative first presented in 2002 and rejected by Israel. He said that they should turn this moment into a real starting point to achieve a peace that secures stability and flourishing and renders the dream of coexistence a reality, and this is the vision of the Arab Peace Initiative. The President called on the Israeli people and the government to end the conflict. President al-Sisi said that Egypt aims through the conference at reaching the best possible ways to provide the necessary support to the Palestinian people and the legitimate Palestinian leadership, stressing that the Gaza Strip has been and will always be part of the Palestinian state. The President described the conference as a key step in enhancing the Egyptian efforts to end the crisis in Gaza. The President underlined the Egyptian efforts to reach a ceasefire on August the 26th, achieving Palestinian reconciliation and providing humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. Al-Sisi, whose government negotiated the ceasefire that ended the war, said that the reconstruction effort hinged on the permanent calm between Hamas and Israel and required the exercise of full authority by the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas. He said that the conference sent a message that the status quo must be continuing, cannot be returned to, and that any attempt to bring about temporary stability will not be lasting for long.
بأجيال قوية أحقق أمانيكي.
بإيدي هبنيكي، أجتهد لأعطيكي،
أخضر أراضيك.
أبهر العالم بيك.
جميلة بكل ما فيك. بدمي أحميك.
Be the first to know. The news live at the site of the event. Information on events as they are happening. If it's breaking news, it's Nile TV. Have you got a good story? Get in touch with Nile TV. Send us your videos, pictures, and stories. Email us on our website. Contact us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And also Google+. Be part of making the news. Only on Nile TV International. For ads on Nile TV, Egyptian Radio and Television Union, the economic sector, info@nileinternational.net, or call us on the following numbers.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome here in the studio Ambassador Haager al-Islambolli, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And always a pleasure to have you with us. And also joining us here in the studio is Dr. Mehna, Professor of Political Economy. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Let me start off with Ambassador Hagar. Ambassador Hagar, obviously, $5.4 billion in aid pledges to the reconstruction of Gaza, exceeding the required or the requested $4 billion. Are you pleased with that?
Well, I'm very pleased with that. Actually, I'm very pleased with the whole conference, which took place today, because this is a commitment. The Palestinians are waiting to get such a commitment from the international community. It's not only a commitment for the reconstruction of Gaza, but as President Sisi mentioned in his speech, that this is a resumption of the peace process that should be finalized after decades of negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis. It's a commitment on behalf of the international community. Of course, it has yet to be seen the implementation, but what's very interesting about the issue is the commitment of the Norwegian minister, who mentioned that Norway would monitor the implementation of the commitments of the different parties.
How important is that, actually having a country saying, well, you know what, we're going to be monitoring that everyone and actually makes that money go through?
Well, it's not any country, actually, because Norway has been committed to the peace process since 1993. They were the guardians and the patrons of the Oslo Accords. They have always played a very constructive role when it comes to the peace and the Palestinians and the humanitarian aid for Palestinians.
Right.
So when they say that, they say it in their capacity as the co-chair of the conference in Cairo, and also as the co-chair of or let me mention, not only the co-chair,
playing its role. I'm glad that they have invited us all to be here, and I think the participation and the speech given by His Excellency President Sisi gives us all hope that Egypt is back very strongly, and the whole region will be better off under this leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and thank you very much, Linda Abdulatif, for that interview. Now, if I come back to you, Dr. Ahmed, do you think that enough money, I mean, were you surprised by, obviously the amount, as we said earlier, that it exceeded the 4 billion required, but were you a bit surprised about who gave what?
Well, I was a bit surprised about who gave what. I think a lot of money came from United Nations, came from USA. I think it was $212 million, and it now doubled to 414. We're talking about Germany, promised 64 million. We're talking about the Russians promised, the Qatar promised $1 billion. I think the problem here that the West is trying to cover up a lot of what happened to Israel, what Israel did to the Palestinians by taking responsibility for the damage caused and the civilians that lost their lives and their houses and their loved ones during that war. And also feeling guilty of not taking an active role for a long time, over the past 50 years, not taking an active role in settling such crisis in the Middle East, particularly that the resolution 242 that basically says that Israel has to withdraw back to 1967. So basically all these resolutions that force Israel to go back to the borders occupied before are already there. There is nothing needed more than just an implementation. So I think the conference importance here, as the Prime Minister said, Egypt is regaining its role. The Arabs are witnessing what is happening to the Palestinians, and they have to stand united. And also the entire world has come to see the occupation and the damage that is causing not just to the Palestinian, but the security-wise in the entire region, and this has to stop. So I think here Israel is under the spotlight, and the Palestinians need to play this hard and lodge for their application. And also the case of the Palestinians and also the refugees, all these cases have to be resolved. So it's in the conference of reconstruction of Gaza cannot be taken in isolation, away from the security of the Palestinians, the return of the refugees, the security of the entire region, the role of Israel in the region, and how it plays that active role in terrorizing the Arabs and occupying land all the time. So,
but don't you think it's interesting, though, that as Israel has really caused all this damage, Israel is a rich country.
That's right.
It's not being held accountable.
Exactly.
It has not been part of the
That's
process.
what I'm saying. The West is taking responsibility for the Israelis have really done. And I think the political outcome that is required out of this conference is more important than the economic outcome. Because this is going to happen again. They're going to give us the $5 billion. You're going to reconstruct Gaza. In 2 years down the line, it's going to happen again.
And that was a very legitimate concern, because going into the conference, and even the United States said it, and a lot of countries said it, they said, how can I pledge all this money? Why do you want me to pledge so much money when I know that
and
this
the conflict is already there?
But then who do we blame for this vicious cycle? Is it Hamas? Is it the...
No, we blame ourselves because we don't learn. If we go back to the peace talks after the 1973 war and the efforts that presidents that really made in establishing peace in the region, I think Palestinians didn't play an active role in here, and I think didn't seize the opportunity that President Sadat really offered them. So I think all of us are paying the price now. This is not going to end until the entire case is opened widely on the Security Council level and on the United Nations General level, and Israel has to be held accountable for what they've done, and they have to stop, because this is going to happen again.
Okay, Ambassador Hager, do you think that this is a recurring theme, that this is a vicious cycle, and was it a legitimate concern for the donors countries to say, you know, I'm reconstructing something that inevitably is going to be demolished again, and who do we blame really for this vicious cycle?
Well, we blame Israel, of course,
Right.
because of the atrocities that has been committed in Gaza. But on the other hand as well, we applaud the formation of a new government in Palestine, representing everybody. That means now we have an authority, a political authority, which is responsible and which is accountable on behalf of the Palestinians, that could commit the Palestinians themselves for the pursuit of peace, for following a path that could lead to peace. And they will not, I think they will have to take care not to raise any concerns on the other side, not to give an excuse for the Israelis to do what they have done. What has happened in Hamas, in Gaza, was terrible. The Israelis, almost, we have thousands of victims, of martyrs in Gaza, and actually they are ordinary people. They are children, they are women, they are people that are not military people, and leaders who claim that they are fighting, they are resisting the occupation. Of course, they raise something which is correct, that there should be a resistance for the occupation. But if we have a path for peace that is open for everybody to come in, people should commit themselves. This time, the responsibility is being laid on Mahmoud Abbas and the new coalition government that has been formed, Palestinian coalition.
The new government on Thursday paid a 24-hour visit to the Gaza Strip. Perhaps it was the first time that they entered the Gaza Strip with a not under the head of or the leadership of Hamas. How important was that for the conference, do you think?
It was important because the Palestinian government had to present to the conference their needs. And actually, I was very impressed by the film which he showed during the conference, in order to give an idea about what happened in Gaza for the ordinary people, the Palestinians themselves. So I think he had to go there to show everybody that the authority lies with the government. And this government could be trusted for the implementation of the peace in Palestine, and for the reconstruction of Gaza, because they have made substantial reform in the government, in their institution, and I think they are ready now to take off the implementation in the Gaza. We have to bear in mind that one serious problem was the siege, the Israeli siege on the Gaza Strip. This would be lifted and would be monitored by the United Nations. The mechanism that will be enforced in these borderlines is monitored by the United Nations and specialized agencies and so on. Also, Europeans are in this process. So there is a comprehensive agenda for the reconstruction, not only on the economic side, but also on the political side. They will have to move quickly on the humanitarian aid side, and then move in the second phase and a third phase, which will be the reconstruction of buildings and so on. So I see an agenda which gives us hope. I see a commitment from the international community. I see Egypt in the driver's seat again in the region, leading the whole region to an era for peace and stability.
Indeed. Dr. Ahmed, let me come back to you. Rebuilding Gaza has obviously been the whole point, or the whole problem by Israel was saying that, you know, I can't allow construction materials into the strip because these construction materials are being used to dig tunnels into my territory. How are we going to overcome this particular
I think the problem here has escalated because a lot of organizations in Palestine, the Palestinians themselves have rejected the UN plan to bring building materials, saying that this is going to be under the supervision of Israel, and we cannot really construct reconstruct Gaza if Israel is going to be part of it. What they basically saying that they have to lift the siege or break the blockade. But what I think here the Palestinians should apply for is a committee that comes from the United Nations and monitor what actually is happening on a ground level, and before that to actually come and see the type of destruction that was caused by the Israelis. Because if we look at the destruction that was caused in the Gaza Strip region was mainly an infrastructure, roads, factories, sewage, water stations. So I think here they break in the Palestinians more than breaking Hamas as an army. So they're always using the excuse of Hamas to get into the country and destroy it. And this is exactly the same thing that happened in Iraq.
And does a unity government in Palestine now put that aside, put that excuse of, oh, I'm just dealing with Hamas, who am I talking to, you guys are fighting amongst each other?
Absolutely.
You know?
So what we need here is a monitoring and overseeing committee that really monitors what's happening on a ground level under the flag of the United Nations. We need to have an international conference on the United Nations level, and the two parties have to be sitting there. Before that, we need to have a reconciliation, an agreement, Palestinians, that the Hamas has to disappear from the scene. If you have an elected, unified government, then this is the government, as the ambassador said, this is the only legitimate authority that has to represent the Palestinians, and they will be held responsible for the reconstruction. And I think also shouldn't stop the peace talk and lift the siege and the blockade around the Palestinians to be able to get the living going, especially after destroying the more than 1,500 of the tunnels. And also we shouldn't forget that the development and reconstruction of Hamas shouldn't ignore the Egyptian Gaza border of 11 kilometers full of tunnels, and we have to also ensure that the reconstruction includes this particular border, because we don't want what happened in the past 2 years in terms of smuggling drugs, weapons, etc., because it's raising and increasing the terrorism on both sides, and there's no control. So I think here Egypt is going to play a vital role in the reconstruction of Gaza and has to be part of the committee that oversees the entire process. But before that, we have to hold Israelis accountable for that and pay for the damage they have caused.
Right. Well, let's take a look at some of the statements made by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi today. He said that this is a moment statements made by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi today. He said that this is a moment that would be a turning point into a real starting point to achieve a peace that secures stability and flourishing and renders the dream of coexistence into a reality. In your opinion, are the two sides ready to sit down together and really start talking about the core issues that will see a two-state solution?
I think the Israelis are a lot closer to having a peace agreement because they're tired of having a war in the region. They prefer peace. But I think the Palestinians are having a problem of the division that exists between Hamas and the central government, because we've got Hamas and Fatah. And the problem here is that division is caused by ideologies. So one of these ideologies will have to disappear. And is Hamas going to take the path of the brotherhood? Is it going to take that side? Because if they do that, then they might be supporters of Daesh. Then we've got another dimension that is added to the table. So if Hamas is isolated away from the scene, the central government of Palestine, that is the only legitimate authority that represents Palestinians. I think we're closer to have a peace agreement in the region. And if Israel goes back to the United Nations Resolutions 242, I think we're going to be closer to a peace.
But President al-Sisi mentioned the 2002 plan that was put forward by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the Arab League Summit in Beirut. This offers full recognition of Israel only if it gives up land seized in the 1967 Middle East War and a just solution for Palestinian refugees. Now, do you think Israel would consider that?
I think there is a problem again on the Palestinian side, because Israel always claims that the Palestinians blow up the agreements.
Right.
Because of the division that happened between Hamas and Fatah again after the agreement, they were united, and then few months or few years down the line, they were totally divided again. So United States never going to acknowledge that division, because it basically gives them an excuse to get into the region. So they play on the division of ideologies, and they say, well, if you cannot get united, we cannot really have a peace in the region. So again, it puts a responsibility on President Mahmoud Abbas. And is President Mahmoud Abbas has the tools and the power and the means to get Hamas under his wing. This is, I think, a crucial question. If he managed to get the Gaza Strip under the supervision and full control of the central government, I think they're going to be closer to having a formal state acknowledgement and also peace with Israel.
Ambassador Hager, I'll pose the same question to you, but right after we take a look at the following report where Linda Abdullah a number of interviews while she was there at the conference today. Let's take a look.
On the sidelines of the Cairo International Conference on Palestine, we've interviewed a number of regional and international ministers as well as other high-ranking senior officials who told us more about the contribution of their countries to the reconstruction of Gaza. So let's take a look.
During the aggression, the Israeli aggression, there have been a number of things that Algeria has been doing, starting with humanitarian assistance that were taken through the Egyptian territory to the Palestinian people in Gaza, contributing our share to the budget of the Palestinian Authority through the Arab League, and also sending a number of medical teams which were deployed in Gaza and assisting in an Algerian hospital which has been built in Gaza to offer services and medical assistance to the Palestinian wounded and the victims in general of the Israeli aggression. Now at this conference, of course, we'll be reiterating our position, according to which there is a need to take hand in hand the reconstruction of Gaza with the political process aimed at bringing about lasting peace and stability in the region.
We have witnessed the tremendous human suffering and destruction in the Gaza Strip. I was just 10 days ago in Gaza City itself and saw the suffering. So Switzerland is very much committed to help rebuilding Gaza, but first of all rebuilding confidence and trust. And that's our contribution in terms of money, but also in terms of providing good offices.
Brazil has been supporting very strongly the Palestinian people through different measures, particularly in the area of humanitarian aid, food security, and we will pledge today an additional contribution of around $5 million corresponding to distribution of rice and beans in important quantities in order to support the efforts made by the Palestinian people, because we believe that only with the support of the international community this problem can be solved, and we hope that this contributes to the political solution for the problem as a whole.
It's a necessity to improve the situation of the people in Palestine, especially in Gaza, but we need a stable political solution, and first of all we need a durable ceasefire.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I will come back to you, Ambassador Hager. And let me ask you the same question that I posed to Dr. Ahmed. The 2002 plan that was put forward by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, do you think that that might be acceptable now to Israel?
It's the Arab initiative now. It has been endorsed by all Arab countries, and it has been presented first by Saudi Arabia to the Arab League, and all Arab countries have committed themselves to this initiative. However, you referred to Israel. Israel still refuses to accept the Arab initiative, still refuses to give back land that is not, has not been or should not be part of Israel. And the general consensus of the world community is that these lands should be returned to the Palestinians. Self-determination has been ignored in Palestine. Occupation is still, this is the last occupation in the world. This is the last occupied land by a foreign, by military force, something which is not accepted by the international community. Now, what we have to do is to maintain a level of pressure, persuasion to the Israeli government, and not only to this, but to the Israeli public, because the Israeli people are the ones who are paying the price for the political occupation of Israel to Palestine. So there is another component that should be included in the debate. The Arab Initiative mentions or calls for peace and coexistence. That's what President Sisi talked about, peaceful coexistence between the different countries in the region. And this has been a guiding principle of the United Nations and of the whole world community. So we need, let me say, good officers, as the ambassador mentioned when he was talking about Switzerland, of all the international community to pressure Israel into moving in the right direction. This could be done through the United Nations Security Council resolution and through different agencies of the UN. The Palestinians have been accepted as a sovereign country now to the United Nations. I think 137 countries accepted that and agreed to that. If you compare them to the 150-something that Israel has, so we're coming close now for the two-state solution that has been guiding all peace efforts in the region, that has been guiding the American position, the European position, Russia, China, and so on. So there is the pillar for peace is already the core of the issue is there. There is an acceptance of the whole world community. What we need to do is how to force Israel to implement that. You give incentives, you push a little bit, you pressure a little bit, but things have to move because now the situation in the region cannot take more any confrontation between Israelis and the Palestinians.
Well, let me just quickly, in a nutshell, I've got 2 minutes exactly. There have been people who have suggested that there could be a one-state solution. But some analysts have said, why don't we go for the one-state solution where everybody coexists under one state? But do you again think that that would be something that either side would be willing to look at?
Well, let's have the two-state solution, which is a resolution of the United Nations 181. It has called since long in the 40s for a two-state solution. As for the one-state solution, let me remind everybody that the Palestinians called for the one-state solution, and this has been rejected by the Israelis. Once they've rejected, now we've been working for the two-state solution for decades now. I don't think we have to stop and restart the whole process in another direction. Let's have the two-state solution. If they agree in the future, the two peoples, to live in a one-state solution, we will accept that.
Dr. Ahmad, do you want to make a closing statement very
yes,
quickly?
I would like to really emphasize that the Palestinians should go for a political approach to obtain recognition from the United Nations, help getting the Israelis framed as a terrorist organization, and also Mahmoud Abbas needs to take control over the Gaza Strip and maintain the border between Egypt and Israel, because it is quite important to maintain stability on the border of Egypt and Gaza, and in the end force the Israelis to implement the resolutions of the Security Council. Otherwise they will have to be basically prosecuted as criminal of wars. And this is, I think, a good solution to force the leaders of Israel to accept
Thank
peace.
you very much. Well, thank you very much for those closing statements, Dr. Camaad Mehna, Professor of Political Economy. Thank you very much for coming in. And once again, always a pleasure having you with us, Ambassador Hagar al-Islambolli, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Tonight's edition of the Daily Debate will be coming again your way tomorrow, same time, same place, here on Now TV International. Have a very good evening.